Hey folks, this is me, Vishwas. I'm the host of today's show, and basically, this is an event which is just going to give you a lot of insights about what is it all about when we're talking about a global infrastructure using an AWS. And I think I would suggest you guys need to join the AWS User Group Madurai because Madurai has been doing phenomenal work in terms of getting the great speakers on board, getting right content for you folks, and pretty much they have been doing a lot of other work related to the community as well. And few rules to keep in mind: be aware of others, be welcoming and respectful, be friendly and patient, be understanding of differences, and be kind and considerate of others as well. So it's all that, and also about be open to questions and the viewpoints as well, because you need to just drop in the questions and go ahead with it. I think Vasan, I think probably you can take the sessions in the middle of the session, or else at the end of the session you can take the questions. That's not a problem. Okay, sure. I think User Group Madurai has been doing phenomenal work. There is always a community initiative going on from Madurai's community. And also do reach out to the Slack channel. It's bit.ly AWS MDUB1. So you can register out there for the AWS Madurai and you can go ahead with it. And also, this is the banner of today's event, as well as about AWS User Group Madurai. Why? What's the use of joining the AWS communities or anything? AWS expert and community members have a huge networking, and as well as special access to AWS content and event updates. Swags, vouchers, and goodies are allocated based on what the task, also for participation and so on. Knowledge sharing and learning, certifications, jobs, and hiring opportunity are pretty much here. So why join us? It's the reason that we are just giving out. So networking and learning, learn AWS, job hiring, certifications become much more easier through AWS user groups and communities. Content is king, by the way. There are a lot of talks, blogs, video, reels, and more are just coming to you. And it's always like experts, they now reach out to you in order to teach you the best of the best. So zero to hero will always be that approach. Like you will start learning from the basics and regional languages, like speak in English, Tamil, or any other languages. There is always that a personal touch that is given through AWS user groups, where sessions will also happen in Tamil or in other regional languages as well. So participate, win swag, vouchers, and so on. And of course, join this Slack channel. It's bit.ly. Join AWS MDU. And we are also in different social media platforms. Do check us out. And thank you, folks. So let's get the things started. So yes, Vasan, I can share the screen. You can go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. So welcome guys. So myself Vasan. So I have like 8+ years of experience over in IT, and so I also run a YouTube channel called Techpechu in a regional language, Tamil. So as part of today's bootcamp session, so our agenda would be focusing on mostly like a global infra, which provides by AWS. So first we will talk about availability zones, region, and edge, and then we will slowly move on to like Cloudfront, a CDN service provided by AWS, and then an ACM. It's a certificate management, like how can we provide a certificate for our domains which you own, and then Route 53, a DNS service offered by AWS. So this session is going to be a mix of both conceptual plus the hands-on walkthrough. So if you have any queries, please feel free to ask then and then over the comments. If not, you can also, if you're watching it later, you can add it over the comment below, or you can post it in the AWS MDU channel, and then we'll connect with you over there. So to begin with, we'll start with the first concept: availability zone, region, and edge. So before understanding what is availability zones, region, or edge concept over AWS, so first we need to know like what we are trying to solve over the cloud. So in generic, everything is going to be like hosted in the server in the past, and then so server is nothing but something similar to our local PC where we can host our files. The same way, like server, it's something like a big set of box which can handle tons and tons of loads. And so the set of servers, they call it as data center. So which is something like a huge empty room in a building, and which contains a set of multiple servers connected over there and handling the loads. So when we say cloud, it's not just meaning like of offloading the part of the server to the vendor, but also we need to ensure like how reliable we can be. So let's say if I'm just moving to a single data center, which is just a single room at some part of the world, then what happens if some power fluctuation happen to that building, or what happens if some national collaborative happen, like a earthquake or tsunami, something happens and the entire building gets destroyed. How am I going to override it, or how am I going to get uh, get prevent that my uh, website or my application is like stable? So that's where the AWS comes hand in hand. So first they comes with a concept called availability zone. So where you they comes with like it's basically like more than 2 or 3 data centers. They call it as availability zone. So where can you see where this availability zone? Like let's say, what does it mean? So it's basically like you can say, let's say I need to launch in the region of Mumbai, or I need to launch it in a specific locality. Then you can come here. So this is where the region comes in kicks in place, and each region will have the multiple availability zones over there. So let's say I want to launch in any one of the specific availability zone within the, let's say, Ireland, or they also have somewhere in Asia specific region like Mumbai. Then I can select the region, and then the AWS automatically takes care of the part of within the which AWS region or which availability zone it should map in. Like for example, I can move it to uh, this Mumbai region, and if I go for EC2, then you would have seen like which availability zone you need to launch it. So since we are part of like zones and regions, so this gives you a quick glimpse of like what is an availability zone. It's basically like more than 2 or 3 data centers that's called as availability zone. So then comes a region. Okay, let's say I'm saying I need to launch in, say, like Mumbai specific availability zone.
Sorry to interrupt, Keerthivasan. There is some
Yeah,
issues on your screen sharing. Can you try stopping your screen share and try it again?
sure.
Yeah.
Okay, this is fine.
1 second. Yep. Now it's better. Yep. Please go ahead. Thanks.
Okay, just uh, so now talking about, so we told, okay, so data centers is going to be like if a power failure, then that's why we adapted for availability zone. What if the same entire huge locality get impacted? So that's where comes this region comes handy. The region is going to be like a combination of 2 or more availability zones, and AWS mentioned like these being set like 300 kilometers away from each zone. So that's where this region comes handy, so that no matter what, even if like your entire locality gets impacted, but your region gets at least one of the specific one gets protected. So this is the basic difference between availability zones and region. And then there is another concept called edge location, where this is basically like it's spread across the world. So this is basically used in terms of like wherever the performance plays a major role. Let's say rather I might be hosting in the India, but I might be wanted to serve the content for the user in US, then the latency will be like high, right? So that's where this edge location comes handy, where they strategically place the edge servers all over the world, so that the first point of contact would be this edge location servers, and then the request can be served then and there rather than traveling all the way to your actual location. We will see this more in detail when we talk about Cloudfront. So in terms of walkthrough, so this is going to the walkthrough, like, so you would be seeing at the top right of the one, so you can see like few servers like S3 or global. Like if you navigate to the S3, you won't see option for routing through the what region you want to select. So like the few things are like global, whereas if you go for like services like EC2, then you would see uh, that it can be like a zone wise or region wise, you can narrow it down. So it's all about regions and zones and edge locations. So let's talk about Cloudfront. So Cloudfront is one of the CDN service. So CDN is like Content Delivery Network. That's what it's abbreviated to. So how it looks like in the real world, right? So they spread, they keep all the edge locations placed all over the world, so all the dots which you see, it's in edge locations, and then so generally you in CDN world you have two major acronyms like or key terms. One is like edge locations, which is actually the server hosted by the CDN, and then the origin, which is nothing but your actual server where you will be hosting your content. So what happens is, let's say I'm hosting my content in India, and if someone from Africa is trying to connect to my domain to fetch the content. So if you let's take an example of an e-commerce like Amazon, where a product image, let's say a shoe, even if I watch from India, or if the same shoe is watched from the Africa, the image of the item is going to remain the same. So rather than just to fetch the content of the shoe image from all the way to Africa to the actual content where I'm hosting, which is in India, which can create a lot of latency. So what this edge location does is it will store the static images. That's for like if whatever the images or whatever the MP3 file, which is going to remain the same for any user from any part of the world. So those things we call it as static files, and all those static files will be stored as part of this edge locations. So if someone from the Africa is trying to hit that image, rather than going all the way to the India and fetch it off, it will directly connect it to the nearest edge location, and the content will be served straight away. So that's the entire motive of CDN. That's where they started with, all began. So what problem it solves when it comes to CDN? So first one I told is like performance. So as we are completely avoiding the latency part of traveling all the way from Africa to the India.
I think there is an issue with your slides only. I think, can you do full screen and do it or something? It's not coming up. Yeah, I think probably. Yeah, okay.
Is it fine now? Okay. Is this fine?
Yes, it's fine. Yeah, it's
okay.
fine.
Yeah, the problem with going in full slide is like I go blind, like I don't know what happens within my system, but that's fine, I believe. Also, I lose the connectivity of my mouse movements. Yeah, I will stick with this for now.
Sure.
In my preview, it looks
Sure.
fine. So yeah, sorry for it.
Yeah.
So that's what this the performance get improved, so that it's going to be that the latency of the content to fetch is like completely avoided, and it's going to like serve straight away. The second thing is like offload. So what do we mean by offload is, as you could see, since the request is like completely being fetched from the edge location itself, our request going through the origin is like completely avoided, which means the number of requests our origin or our actual server receives would be like nil or completely low. So that's what we call it as offload, so that our performance of the website is improved, and then our the offload percentage, like the content is serving straight away from the edge locations, not even reaching out to our backend server. So that's been achieved. And then the security. So when do we say security, means in generic, in old world, so how they would do is, boom, I lost my slide. Uh, sorry guys, it's okay. No. Sorry, give me a minute. I'll just sharing and
Sure.
think some issue with the slide for some reason. Give me a minute, Vishwa. I'm just opening it again.
Sure. Take your time.
Okay, so somehow I managed to get that back. Okay, is the screen still now again? Just sorry guys, it's just swapping off screen and it
Sure.
just makes
Got
life
it.
hard. So the security, yeah. So keep it going. Like so, one is like offload, which we talked about, which means we are avoiding the hits to our backend, which means this also helps in cost optimized way, because say suddenly you get like 100K hits, you don't want to scale up your system, and this can be like handled at your backend, like your CDN itself. Then comes security. So in generic, you will get attacks like DDoS attack, which is like suddenly all of a sudden day, like people decides to bombard your server to bring your site down. And these kind of things can be handled using WAFs, like web application firewall, by mapping it to your CDN, and then all the security functionalities can be done at your CDN itself, so that you don't need to worry much about protecting your origin server, because you are filtering the traffic at the front place, the CDN, and then the traffic goes through the your backend. So let's talk about like a demo, less speaking, and then we'll get more into the part. So I'm going to show you the walkthrough of the CloudFront distribution, like how we can create from the scratch. Plus, I will also walk you through the existing website, like how I posted my. I have two blogs posted. Like one is uh, techpage.com, and then another is like land.techpage.com. So both sits in the same distribution. So uh, I would happily show like how it's been, how the setup is in place as well. So to give an overview, like how it's going to look. So this is how the blog looks, and it's hosted end-to-end in AWS serverless. So this would give you a quick glimpse like how you can use CDN in your real world. So to begin with, so you would create a distribution straight away over here, and then you would need to choose your origin domain. So as I told, origin is a term where you are actually going to host your website. So it can be an S3 bucket, uh, it can be your EC2 server, or it can be uh, your any public IP. So that's why this. I think the screen share functionality is like lagging somehow. We just stop share and reshare it again. Okay. So yeah, so I just posted this S3 as the one, and then maybe I will just zoom in so that you guys can visible. And then you have the origin path, which is like to which origin routing you need to map it to. So which means, let's say, as you would have seen in the S3 bucket session, so you have the S3 bucket, and then you can have subfolders over that. So let's say for domain ABC, I would need to go to, so let's say for domain A, I would need to route it to the same S3 bucket, but for folder A. Whereas for domain B, uh, it might be the same S3 bucket, but I would need to go to, say, domain B. So that's where this origin path would come handy. So you can say the S3 bucket name and then to which origin path, which base path. So it can be a file A or file B, where I should get routed to. So that's where these things would come handy. Okay, so I found the glimpse. Like I just need to move my slide and then be back, and somehow helping it out. Okay, so then we have this S3 bucket OAI, like it's called as origin as a identity. I will again talk about this a bit later. Then you have this enable origin shield, which is something like to enable the caching behavior and other things and functionalities over there. So I'm not going to explain much over here. It's more like a self-explanatory in terms of like performance and how it can be configured. So you can also like enable the protocol like HTTP and HTTPS, redirect from HTTP to HTTPS. It's all more or less, it's not AWS specific, more or like it's like networking specific. So if you get some time, have a read on it, like what is HTTP protocol, what is HTTPS protocol, and what are the methods they use in the real world, and what get method does, what get head methods will do for your application, those things. So this one is like something interesting functionality where you can restrict viewer access, where let's say for a website like an Amazon Prime, where you want to serve the static files like video files with the token, if they come from a valid token, or you can create a custom signed cookies, and then if that exists, then only you need to let them watch your content or through. So that's where this restrict viewer access can comes handy. Then we have this cache key and origin request. So this basically you could see like it's mapped to like cache policy and origin request policy. So cache policy generally you can say like how much duration like content should be get cached. So which means caching is a term like where you are storing the content
Sir,
in
can
your
you
edge
zoom in
locations.
a little bit more? Can you zoom in a little bit more?
This fine?
Yeah, this is fine.
Okay. So the cache optimized would be like how much duration I need to store it in the edge location, the specific file. So those things can be configured over the cache policy. Then origin request policies, like what are the parameters, what are the cookies I need to pass it to the backend. And response header policies where like what are the headers if I need to set it at the browser level to the viewer response. So what are the things I need to pass it by. Same way, like AWS provides 4 different additional functionalities. You can integrate Lambda to your Cloudfront. So when you're integrating Lambda to the Cloudfront, they call it as Lambda Edge. So you have this viewer request, viewer response, origin request, and origin response. So generally, either it's written in Node.js or in JS. So you can also write in Python, but generally people prefer Node.js or JS to serve the content. And if you talk in terms of users flow, it's going to be look like this. So the flow is going to be hit the CDN, and then so from CDN, it will be going through the origin. So this origin can be anything. It can be an S3 bucket. It can be an EC2, or it can be an any specific IP address or your load balancer, whatever it can be. So the thing which we saw over here, the viewer request or viewer response or the origin request or origin response. So if it's a viewer request, then it would be triggered straight away over here. We will try to take a pen. So if it's a viewer request, it's triggered here. If it is a viewer response, then it should be triggered when the request is going from CDN to the user perspective. And then origin request is when the request goes from your CDN to the origin, and then origin responses, it's vice versa, like origin to CDN. So request, anything on the flow from user to CDN to origin will be like an request flow. Response flow would be like origin to CDN to your user. That's where, so based on the requirement or based on the use case, you can strategically place it over there. And AWS also provides a wide range of example for your use case. So a simple thing, let's say if I want to use Lambda at edge for to do a redirect, let's say I want to redirect from path A to path B or something, you can just quickly do a Google, and AWS provides you a real-time example for it with the sample Node.js or a Python script. So again, I'm not going to go deep into it. It's more like an introduction part of it. And then you can also have this web ACL where you can map your WAF rules. So WAF here are going to act as the layer 7. So you can read a path, you can block a path, or you can block a specific IP, or you can restrict a specific methods. So anything, whichever it comes under layer 7 layer of networking, you can have the full control over that. So by default, AWS comes with the domain name something like cloudfront.net. But if you want to have your custom domain, like for me, in my case, it's going to be like techpechu.com. So if you want to have a domain name something like this, then you can have the custom name map to the distribution over here. And then obviously, if you're having a custom distribution name, then you need to procure your custom certificate, which will again talk during the ACM topic. And then all the performance things like enabling logging and HTTP2 and IPv4 and IPv6, everything will be taken care under the CDN part. So once you click over the distribution, then your CDN will be created, and it would take around 15 minutes for the distribution to get propagated. So just to keep it short, so I can show you the real-time one, like how we have created in our application, and then it would be like issue. So as you see, like I'm creating an alternate domain name, which learn.techpechu.com and techpechu.com. Same way, so this would be the default distribution name, some gibberish characteristics .cloudfront.net. So if you are not adding your alternate domain name, then you would be accessing your CDN with this default gibberish one. For practice, it doesn't matter, like you need to procure a domain like that. You can even try it with the default distribution name, because if you're going with a custom domain name, they need to purchase it, and it comes like an annual charge of 1,500 INR. But if you can afford it, if you want to experiment it, then I would highly recommend going through this. So I mentioned like it can also act as a WAF, right? So if you go to the above section, there is something called as Geographic Restriction. So where you can say, I need to block certain countries over here. So you can edit it. Let's say if I want to restrict certain countries, like say I want to block India, I can do it. If I want to block UK, I can do it. Whatever the country you think you get hits from, feel free to block it. Generally, I just block Korea, Republic of, because that's where most of the attackers comes from in generic statistically. So yeah, so if you want to do it, you can do it. So when I talk about caching, offloading, then there comes a query like, what if I upload a file? Then how can I make it to reflect for the end users? Let's say I have a JPEG file, and I'm making changes to it, if it's already caching at the edge location, how can I make it reflect for other users? So that's where this invalidation come handy, which is in some CDN they call it as purging, which is like deleting the file whichever is stored in the edge location. They call it as invalidation purging. That can be any other multiple terms as well. So all you need to do is you will create an invalidation request and then say what endpoint you want to do. So this also supports a wildcard. So you can do a /star or a wildcard, and then you can create an invalidation boom that will delete the any content for the specific path you are requesting, and it will clear all the content stored in the edge locations. And from that time, when the next request flows in, it will go to the backend origin and fetch the new content from that. So that's what the functionality of the edge locations. You can also define the custom origin. So here I'm using S3 bucket as the origin. So you can also use create a custom origin and say I need to go for this specific custom domain, let's say abc.com, and then things like that. You can go through over that. So this would need more fundamental understanding of networking concepts, how the DNS works, and how what origin path requires. If you're a beginner, knowing the basic fundamentals like how to configure a distribution would be like more than enough. But if you're targeting for hosting your own website and how to improve the performance, then diving deep would be like really an added advantage over here. Yeah, so tags, it's more like as any other resource, you can tags, which can be used in to backtrack your billing purpose, your utilization, and resource tracking purpose. You can use tags. You can also use tags for your IAM permission mapping, who can access it, and things like that. Okay, so I think it's mostly covers all the distributions part. So in terms of the handling the redirects and rewrites, either you would go with Lambda.edge or you can also use Cloudfront functions. So as per AWS, the Cloudfront functions sits in viewer request and viewer response, and Lambda.edge can sit anywhere on all the 4 places like viewer request, origin request, viewer response, and origin response. Yeah, so that's where the major difference between Cloudfront functions and Lambda.edge. So all the basic limitations for Lambda applies for Lambda.edge also, like 15 minutes runtime limitation and everything. Comparing cost-wise, Cloudfront functions is much cheaper than Lambda.edge. So as a best practice, people try to avoid as much Lambda.edge when it comes to their real-time use case. As you see in the last time CloudWatch monitoring session, you can also have the option for like monitoring and alarm sections and everything over the CloudFront as well. So before going further, any questions so far? Okay, so if there is no queries.
Yeah, I don't think so. There are any other questions. I think I had posted it like if you have any questions, so do drop it down in the comment section. Because I think there is a 30 seconds lag, I think so. Probably now they will be putting the questions.
Okay, sure. Fine. So I'll just continue. If any question pops up, we can stop and then answer it.
Sure, sure. You can continue, sir.
Yeah, so this would be the generic overview of distribution. So as the next one, we'll talk about ACM and Route 53, and then we will see how all these 3 chain together to form a complete website. So the ACM, it's a certificate management, which is provided by AWS. So let's talk about what is a certificate management and how it would be helpful in the real time. So whenever you go to a website, either you would have hit this HTTPS or HTTP. And as you would be already knowing, like whenever you see that hit the HTTPS in the website, you'd already would see a lock icon over here, which means it's secure. That's a basic understanding everyone has. So what exactly it means is like any data which is going from your browser to the backend server or from the server to your uh, local browser, it's been tunneled and it's been like an SSL verification is happening, which means the data is getting encrypted and decrypted back and forth. So who decides or how the verification happens over whether the certificate is valid or who has the ownership? So that's where this certificate authority comes handy. So the famous certificate authorities are like there is Global Sign, and now Amazon also have their own certificate authority. And then Let's Encrypt, there's another certificate authority which is like a free open source for developers. There is another certificate called Let's Encrypt. But now, like Amazon also have their own certificate authority. And if you want to have your own domain hosted in any of the AWS, it can be a Cloudfront, it can be an your like a load balancer directly. You can procure certificate from the Amazon, and then you can get it validated. So basically, like browser trusts the certificate authority, and if the certificate authority trusts your domain, then by default, your browser also trusts that domain. So that's how the logic works. I don't want to go in depth of it, like how this SSL handling work and things like that. So in generic, you have like public key and private key and all those concepts behind it. But AWS is like really simplified it. They don't share the private key or public key. It's just maintained within the distribution itself, and you can just directly map it straight away without any chairs of maintaining the certificate. Benefits of using ACM over any other certificate authority. It auto renews. So for every 1 year, the certificate get auto renews. So it's just one-time procurement, and you can forget about it. Second thing is it's free of cost. So if you have your own domain and if it's validated one time, it's going to be like a free of cost from day one for your certificate. So you don't need to pay for anything as such. Also, it's a quick integration between your ACM certificate portal, Route 53 auto validation, and your EC2 or ELB or CloudFront, wherever you're hosting your website, it can be auto linked. So let's talk about demo. So for the demo, I can create a certificate for you guys and then show like how it's going to look. So let's say we'll go to certificate manager. Still loading for me. Here with it. So you can see on top of here like a request certificate. Maybe I'll zoom up a bit. So a quick recall, like as you could see, like you can procure the certificate from what region you want to do it. One thing to keep in mind, if you are going to procure the certificate for CloudFront, then you need to procure only from the North Virginia region. So they don't support certificates from other regions. So they demand the certificate should be from the North Virginia region. And then you can request a certificate over here. So you could see like a public certificate and private certificate. So public certificate means globally approved, whereas private certificate is just for your own VPC. I'll just go with the public certificate, and you can, let's say, I'm procuring for test.techpechu.com, and I prefer the method as DNS validation over here. I can provide tags if required. So if I just provide request, then it's going to be starts the certification requirement. So test.techpechu.com. You see, it's called status is pending. So if I go over here, and I can select like create records in Route 53. So if I do it, then it's going to, I'm just going left and right so that the StreamYard is loading the page properly. There is some bug in the browser maybe. If I do next time, I will use Chrome. Sorry for it, guys. So now you could see as it's been like my domain having the host zones in the Route 53, it's automatically linked, and the DNS record is automatically created over here. I can quickly show you whether the record is created or not. So I can go to this website, Dig Web interface, that gives you a quick glimpse like what is that. And if I go for test dot techpechu.com, and so it would generally created a CNAME record, right? So what is a CNAME record it demanded for? So it demanded for this is a CNAME record. So let's copy it and see whether it's got created or not. So you could see the AWS requested data is this, and our DNS is being like automatically created by the AWS Cloud 53. I will show the Route 53 in the next part of the demo, but for now, you just get an idea like how it's been linked. And after the DNS is created, within few fraction of seconds, after the DNS is created, then within the few fraction of second, your certificate is being verified, and you could see it's been validated now, and now you have the proper certificate from the ACM. So it's all about ACM. So you can procure the public DNS, and how you validate, you use CNAME. It's free. It auto renews, and you can use the certificate. No hassle of maintaining public key, private key. And yeah, so that's the main purpose of ACM, and that's how you do it. Next, let's talk about Route 53. So Route 53 is a DNS service offers by AWS. So why 53? Why Route 53? Why not Route 88 or Route 54? So 53 is the port number of DNS, like how you have TCP/PS is like 443. Same way, the DNS routing protocol is like 53. That's why this Route 53 the name. Just remember it so that it can be helpful in your interview as well if they ask anything like that. So how the DNS works? So it's basically a name to number translation. So you have an IP address of your server. Rather than remembering it, it's going to translate you from IPA to like your domain name to your IP address. Same way, Route 53 not only act as like a routing traffic or translating the traffic from your domain name to IP, it also act like a domain registry. So domain registry, most commonly known, you would know GoDaddy. Like if you want to register a domain, same way Route 53 also act as a domain registry. So if you want to procure a domain on your own name, and if you want to use it, then you can use Route 53 domain registry. And then Route 53 also have private and public zones. So zones is where you will create the DNS records. Like for example, a few seconds back, AWS created a DNS record for us, right? The CNAME record. So likewise, any record if you want to create for your one, then you will be creating in the zones. And Route 53 contains two different zones, private and public zones. So public zones, as it says, anyone from the outer world can do a DNS query for it and can get the result of it. Whereas private zones is just limited to within your own VPC. So others can't translate the record for it. So let's walk through the portal, like how the Route 53 would look and how can we procure the certificate for it. So this is where the Route 53 is going to be, and so you could see I have one hosted zone, and then you can also see like registered domains over here, and yeah, so I have a registered domain, and it's getting expired on 2022, and it's automatically renewed. So let's say if I want to register a new domain, I can go here and check for it. Let's say I want to use tp.com. Then I can check it, and it will say whether it's available or not for easy use. So you can also do the same thing. It's also suggest me like if it's not available, what are the other things which is equivalent one is available, and you can. It's more like next. Give your credit or debit card, purchase your domain, happy domaining or happy hosting. So that's where this uh, registry works. So always remember Route 53 is not just a DNS service, but it also acts as a domain registry. Like many people forget that. So once you have this domain registry, then you'll be actually creating your DNS records in the Route 53 hosted zones. So if I go for Route 53 back again, and so you can have these hosted zones. You can also create one if you would like. So I already have the hosted zones for techpechu.com, and this is where all the DNS entries goes and sits over here. So you could see the record which we created a few seconds back, the underscore PC blah blah. It's been named and created over here. So that's where the DNS ACM automatically clicks a record over here. And there are like multiple types of DNS records, like you have A record, uh, quad A, and TXT. Again, it's nothing specific to AWS. It's all networking, DNS, standard topic. So if you're more into networking, I would highly recommend spend some time on like what are the DNS records available over there and what record is used for what purpose in real time. You also have TTL. So again, it's a DNS generic concept where like how long duration your local machine or your middle layer DNS translator should recommend the equivalent value of the specific domain once it's translated. Uh, so I can show you like how to create a record quickly. Maybe like, for example, if I want to say MDU Madurai User Group dot test.techpechu.com, and then I can say, let's say if I create a record like 192.0.0.1, something like that, and if I create a record, the record will get created, and you could see, yeah, so the record got created, and if I want to immediately, if I go here and do a DNS lookup, right, for the public entry, then I would see the same over here as well. So it's going to be as simple as that, as quick, reflective as well. So that's how this DNS thing works. So what is AWS specific things to know on Route 53? It's the routing policy. So that comes handy over the Route 53 specific topic. So AWS provides like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different routing policies, which everyone must know in like how it can come handy in terms of when it comes to routing. So first is going to be like a simple routing, which is like you just go to the website and say, hey, domain A should go for domain B. So that's where this simple routing comes. So I have domain A. Bear with me, I will refix it. So I have a domain A, and then I have a specific IP address or a specific CNAME. So if I say like domain A to IP, so this is what simple routing would be. So I'm just saying like this one should go to this IP, and it's all about it. As simple as that. That's why it's called simple routing. Then you have weighted routing. So weighted routing is that instead of having single IP or single CNAME, I can have one more IP address, and I might want to go like 50% of traffic to IPA and 50% to IPB. So in a minute. So have like domain A, rather than having a single IP address, I might be wanting to route IP8 50% or IP to 50%. That's where this weighted routing comes. So this can be helpful in real-time scenario where you want to do a migration, like say like from EC1, like one EC2 to another EC2, where you want to swap the DNS rather than completely swapping it. You can do like step-by-step rollback or rollout kind of things. So that's where this weighted routing comes handy. Then you have latency-based routing. Let's say you have the server over here, but you don't want to route based on the weightage, but you want to route based on the latency, like how quick the IP can resolve. So that's why this latency routing comes. So let's say if your IP is in, one can be in US, another can be near India. So for Indian user, it would route it to India itself, and for US user, it would be routed to US IP. That's where this latency-based routing can come handy. Failover routing, so you can configure the health check for the endpoints. So it would be checking periodically health check, and then you can say like if one is failover, then automatically route it to the another healthy one. Geolocation routing, as the name says, you can say route based on the location. Like if it is India user, go to here. If it is US user, go to here. The difference between latency based and geolocation, in geolocation, you precisely say the location. If it's India, then go here. If it is US, go here. Whereas latency based, even you can have within the India multiple servers, and you can achieve more granular performance based on the real-time latency one. Then you have geo-proximity. So geo-proximity is more like a combination of geolocation plus weighted routing. So you can say if the user location is India, then route 50% or 40% of traffic over here, likewise. Then you have multi-value answer routing. So multi-value answer routing is like same like simple routing, but you have the option to configure health check for it. So if any of the records over there, it's like failing health check, then it will automatically get skipped and routing will be like stopped. So coming to the hands-on part, so if you go to the zones or hosted zones, so you can create a record over here, and you can have the name like for what you want to create. Let's say if I want to go for like hi.test, and then you can have the record type. So what type of record type you want. All the routing policies I talked about, it's over here. So anytime if you forgot like what routing policy is what, I think you can have the things handy at your eye glance by clicking this info, which provides like simple is like a standard functionality, waiting is like splitting the resource, geolocation geobase, latency is like how lowest latency you can connect to, failover if any health check fails, and multi-value answer same as simple but with an extra health check over that. You can also have the TTL, like how long it should cache. They call it as time to live, and so default is like 300 seconds is like 5 minutes, and then you can have minimum of 1 minute and go up to like 2 days over there. So yeah, it's all about Route 53. So now I can quickly show you like how this is all interconnected. So obviously the domain record lies over here, like for techpechu.com, the DNS record, and then that would be pointed to the Cloudfront distribution, a CNAME record over that. So if you see for this screen, so if you go for techpechu.com, then you would see it's been you could see like it's been routed to like a record. So this is kind of one. So if I go for nodes.techpechu.com, and if I go here, then it will be taken me to the CNAME record. So either I can use multi-value or I can use single CNAME record. It's all up to your domain preference. And you could see like notes.techpitch.com is been CNAME to the distribution default name. So if you want to find any domain where it is being routed, then feel free to do it. So you will get know like how many domains being actually routed in or hosted in Cloudfront, or where they're actually hosting in day to day. You can get to know by using this simple DNS query. So once this node Techpechu has been pointed to this distribution, so obviously the traffic flows to the distribution of over here, the nodes.techpitch.com distribution. Then I have configured the origin name for it. So I have configured S3 as the origin. As you could see, I have this S3 bucket as the origin, and yeah, so this is where the origin sits, and it will be pointed to my S3 bucket. And I also, like as I mentioned, I have pointed like geographic restriction, not for this, but for techpitch.com I have had in place as part of prior. And coming to the certificates, I have, you could see I've been mapped this one to this SSL, which is again hosted in ACM. So could see it contains this domain procured from ACM, and this is linked to the Cloudfront, and that's how it's all interconnected. WAF, ACM, and the Cloudfront distribution, Route 53, S3, or any EC2. It's how the entire resource is being interlinked, and how you can host your website. As a project, as a trial project, if you would like to try anything, do a Google for how to host a static web page in S3 bucket using Cloudfront. You don't need a proper domain name. You can just use a default cloudfront.net, and you should be able to achieve it without any Route 53 or without any ACM, so that you can try it out as a hobby project if anyone interested over that. Yeah, so that's all for today's session. So hope you find it useful. Let me know if you have any specific doubts or queries over that.
Sure. Thank you so much, folks. Thank you so much for joining in for the session, and also a lot of things out there. We have a voucher giveaways and a lot of other swag distribution, a lot of things. So we still have a lot of fun tasks to be given from AWS User Group Madurai. So do hop into our Slack channel. It's bit.ly/join AWS MDU. That's AWS Madurai Community, User Group Madurai Community. And thank you so much, Vasan sir. And also, we can go ahead and we can end the broadcast. If you guys don't have any questions, please do drop your questions in the comment section down here, or else we'll end the broadcast. So I think, yeah, Vasan sir, I think you're in mute. So
Yeah.
I think if there are anything that let's say, okay, we use the same old container-based application, how is security taken care of there? Let me just say, I've given a privileged mode where they can really do all sort of root access and everything. So how is security taken care when we are thinking of the container-based application?
So this is more like routing the front end traffic, right? So the container comes and sits in the backend, where you are going to handle within the EC2 servers, right? So when we are talking about global or CloudFront, it doesn't worry about are you placing your application in the container, or are you placing the application within your EC2 machine or S3. All the filtration happens at the layer 7 of network layer. So it's like in generic, what people do, they use security groups of EC2 machine, or where you are spinning up the container, and over that they will have the restriction to allow only from CloudFront IPs, so that rest of the traffic gets stopped then and there. This won't be a right fit for application progressing or API type endpoints. So this would be a more fit for your front-facing domain. It can be a blog website or an e-commerce website where you actually host a site for the end user to access it and have the control and security at the layer 7, like a DDoS attack and other things at the first place, like SQL injection attacks over that can be stopped with this help of WAF and other things.
Yeah, sure. I think thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. Folks, will end the broadcast. And if you have any queries, do reach out to him on LinkedIn, and also do reach out to us on Slack channel. We'll be able to help you out. And thank you so much, folks. Bye then.
Yeah, cheers. Bye.
We'll end the broadcast.